For those of you who don't know me, I'm Casey Kanega. We have approximately 450 acres here, and this barn was moved here, and we had taken it down in 2003 and moved it here in reconstructed it in 2006. It's kind of a funny story. I know some of you maybe have heard it already, but I was not looking for a barn originally. I was looking for a log house to move. And a guy had told me, he's like, well, I know where a hay press barn is. And I'm like, well, I'm looking for a log house, not a hay press barn. So I went and looked at it, and once I seen it, it was something that it was pretty unique and interesting. So the barn dates back to 1853. As I said, we took it down in 2003, re-erected it in 2006. There once was around 200 to 300 of these hay press barns across the country, up and down the Ohio River Valley. And to this date, there's only about 7 to 8 known to exist that actually have the hay presses fully intact. There's actually 3 of them that's in operation still. One of them is in Wyandotte Woods State Park. One of them is in our fellow neighboring county, Swishland County here, that they've re-erected here a couple years ago. And then we have this one here that actually are in demonstration condition. So, you know, it's neat to see that these things are getting preserved. The hay press, just to give you a brief history on it, hay presses were a prominent feature in the 1850s roughly. Samuel Hewitt invented the hay press in 1843, and he lived in Swishland County. And it was patented then, and some of them developed late 1850s and then or early 1850s all the way up to the 1870s. Now, why I say 1870s is, as with technology, things change. And can anybody tell me maybe why in 1870 the hay presses really weren't that prominent anymore? Does anybody have any ideas why the hay press operation had changed? I got one correct answer, but there's also another answer as well I'm looking for. He said steam engines that could have hay balers attached with them as well, and belt driven. The other one is hay presses. Hay presses. There's other hay presses that became available, more innovative ones that you could take to the fields and whatnot. But one of the biggest things that grew in popularity is because these hay presses were up and down the Ohio River, because we had to use the river as a way of transportation. They would deliver these bales to Cincinnati and Louisville because there would be a lot of people that had urban sprawl, and they were concentrated in the cities at the time. And the hay people back then were like gasoline is to us now. If they didn't have hay, their horses did not go, they couldn't travel, they couldn't till their fields, they couldn't do their everyday livings. So that's where it's very similar to what gasoline is to our cars today. But where I'm at with it is that the railroads became a little more active in the late 1870s, 1880s. And when railroads became available, that was another way of transporting the hay back and forth across the countryside. So no longer was the river really the necessity at that point in time. They could travel across plains now, and then urban sprawl was able to actually go outward more so than following the rivers and following the tributaries. So that's one of the neat things there. So the press here, as I mentioned, it's 1853. There's a chunk of wood, if you guys look down here in the bottom, on the side. On the sides of the press, you'll see a chunk of wood down in there, and then you can see the doors that are opening here. And this is known as the compression chamber. That's why it's so thick and meaty, because there's a lot of compression that goes on there. And so this is the compression chamber, and then you've got the big wood block in here. This big wood block weighs almost 1,000 pounds. The block would be hoisted into the ceiling by the horse in the basement. The horse in the basement actually hooks onto a sweep, which is hooked onto a 6-foot diameter wheel. And when that horse makes a revolution, approximately 14 foot of the diameter of the wheel will raise the block into the ceiling. As the block goes into the ceiling, these chamber doors will be closed.
when the chamber doors are closed, we'll actually pitch loose hay into the chute, and this chute will open at that point in time, and we'll actually fill it full of hay. So we'll do that, and we'll actually, the block will be in the ceiling, and the block will come down, and it'll actually be released by the attendant in the basement. The attendant in the basement will handle opening the chute and dropping the block. I'm going to be concentrating on filling the chute full of hay. We'll actually do that revolution about 6-7 times to get a full bale. But only once we've done it 6 to 7 times, it's about halfway through. We'll actually turn the horse around, and it'll actually squeeze the bale from the bottom up. And once it squeezes the bale from the bottom up, we'll actually tie off the bale. And some of you can see the gaps on the block on each side there where you can tie it off, and while everything's squeezed still, and then we'll release the block and we'll pull the bale out. The bale is known to weigh anywhere from 250 to 300 pounds when we're done. We're using some drier, looser hay. It's not going to weigh that much today, but making a bale of that size would take probably the attendants years ago 8 to 10 minutes. It's going to take us a little longer because we're not as efficient at it as of right now. When the block does come down, mind you, there's 34-foot long beams in here, and they're not being supported necessarily by all kinds of floor, they're long floor joists. So it will have a little bit of shaking to it. So I'm just alarming you now. The other neat thing about this I skipped over is that the actual hay press here, this whole structure weighs approximately 9,300 pounds. When we moved the barn, we actually had a boom truck that actually picked it out of the barn, and we kept it all in one piece. This 9,300 pounds is resting solely on this apparatus, and that's why you see the triangulations, and you'll see double tendons on the end of the beams. So that's why this is a work of art here, because that whole apparatus is resting on the cross members that you see going across the top. There's 2 major beams that cross over, and it's resting on there. It is not resting on anything in the basement. So that's once again why there's a little bit of springiness to the beams when the block comes and falls. I think that's about it. Anybody have any questions before we get things started? We're ready to do our first revolution. Okay, if we can open the chute. This is all done by the attendant downstairs. The best I can tell, it's for efficiencies, and it's also so whoever the attendant is that's throwing the hay in doesn't get their head or their arm in there and get caught. If the guy in the basement's controlling all of that, then the communication's a lot better off. So. Okay, so we're clear now, and he's going to drop this, and you're going to feel it shake a little bit. So maybe a little dust. We're clear. So that's one revolution. Now, I will tell you that this block is actually made to go a little taller and higher. We've actually got it scaled down. We're trying not to break anything. Over here where all the tables are sitting, there would be actually, that would be where the extra hay storage would be. So they want to just dump it right here on the ground. They would do one of 2 things. They would bring the wagon straight in that has the hay out here on it now and take it directly off. Close the chute. You can see there's plenty of prods right here from where you got to help it check sometimes. We're clear. So they you didn't know you were going to get a souvenir, did you? So, okay, we're going to reverse the horse now. We were finished with the hay, and we're going to go backwards. I say backwards. The horse is not literally going backwards. The horse is turning around in the basement right now. So instead of walking counterclockwise, the horse is now going to go clockwise.
And what they're going to do is, there's a plunger in the bottom here that's actually going to start squeezing the bale up from the bottom up. And for those of you that are up here, you can see that there's two hollowed out areas on the side of these main beams where we have two cogs that are going to slide into there, and that's what it's going to press and squeeze against. So some of you can see it better than others, but some of the boards distort the view a little bit. So we need to turn the horse around, and we need to go back the other direction 6 times. They pop open pretty good. So let's see if we did things right. And we're in good shape. So from year to year, you just don't know. So we're going to be using the strings today. However, years ago, there's this little apparatus right up here in my rafters. They actually had that was a measuring guide that they actually had a roll of like thin metal, or actually metal wire that they would cut off and use wire bands instead of the rope. The wire bands were more durable and could handle more, apparently, for the shipping. We're going to be using the rope today. It's just easier for us to handle. So, Eric, are you on the top one and slide through there on the top?
I was on.
If you'll come through the top, please. There you go. So my attendant actually puts his pointer through. I'll hook the loop on it. You can pull it on back over, Eric. And then I'm going to put mine through on the bottom, and he'll hook into mine. There we go, Eric. See it there now?
Yep, go with it.
Got him?
Yep, cool.
Yep, that's great. So then we pull it right through here. You'll be able to see when we pull it out, but there's actually little tunnels that we can feed these through. So, where a bale of this hay could fetch, and it seems crazy that it would be that expensive back then, but like $5 to $8. Now that seems like a lot for 1850. So I don't know how credible my source was on that, but that's what I've read. Direction to where we can lower the floor down, because the floor right now there's a lot of compression on that to keep the bale squeezed so we can get it tied off. So now the horse has to go the other direction so we can release the pressure. So we need to go ahead and the floor needs to go back down, guys. So if we can go ahead and do that, instead of the horse standing there with the block up in midair, we're going to gently let it go back down to the ground, or we would start our second bale, however we would do that, but we're only doing the one for now. So we're going to pick the block up now, just maybe a quarter of a turn. Okay, that'll work there, guys. Well, that'll work. Okay. Generally, since that's the chute side, we go ahead and pull the bale out from over here. And then there's your bale. Now, that bale is dry hay. It's not packed as full as it could, but that's going to be about your average size bale that you get out of there. Probably weighs 125, 130 pounds today. Could be up to 250 pounds when it's green hay and it's or fresh hay, and also compressed to its full maximum potential. So we can gently let the block back down. This is where you literally back out right now.